Critters. I'm Clara Jones, your devoted host of the Sacred Reading CR podcast, where we discuss and examine Critical Role episodes, plot lines, characters, and players through the lens of sacred reading practices. This particular episode is Campaign 1, episode 49, I believe. Yep, that's what my notes tell me. Part 1. And joining me today is Petall.
Hello.
So, the icebreaker that I just found, I'm changing it slightly, but what are the top 3 to 5 recently used emojis in your phone right now?
Oh, I've got to pull up my phone for this. Sometimes it's a bit skewed because sometimes when I'm naming like photo albums on my
Hmm.
phone, I like to use emojis for it, and I
Hmm.
feel like there have been recently been things that I've put specific. Oh yeah, I've also recently been like asking people things from Ask Games on Tumblr, so that's also that's
Okay.
also skewed my most recently used emojis. Um, one of them is the suspicious face, like the
Yeah,
one
yeah.
eyebrow raised.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One of them is a cat with heart eyes.
Great. Always a good
One of
one.
them is like the writing emoji.
Okay.
One of them is a dice emoji, and then one of
Hmm.
them is a broken chain emoji.
Okay. Okay. That runs the gamut for sure. So let me see what's on mine. Um, I've been using the rock on a lot
Nice.
lately. The next one is the crying buckets one because I've spent most of today crying over Bad Bunny halftime show reaction videos of
Nice.
people who are of Latino and or South American, Central American descent, and
hmm
just my heart is full of the representation, and I've been crying buckets all day long.
hmm
The other one is the heart hands.
Nice.
And then the smile with the little sweat dripping down because that has been my
hmm
mode a lot lately. And then my go-to heart emojis are the two pink hearts that are like slightly tilted. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the ones that's two of them. That's my go-to heart emoji as well.
Yeah, that's my go-to heart emoji.
I like that there's two of them. That's why I do that one.
I feel like it's like multiplying the love.
Yeah.
Sometimes I use the one that has like the concentric hearts,
Oh, nice.
because that also feels like it's multiplying the love, but that feels for some reason more serious than the two hearts.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're the first person I've ever run into who also has the same default heart emoji as I am. Normally, everybody does the different colored hearts. The different colored hearts are nice. I wish the two heart emoji had different color options, but
True. Yes.
it does not. And so I prefer the two over the selecting a color.
Yes. And I have lately been switching to using the hand hearts more often because I feel like that's more of like a hug heart. Like I'm giving this heart to you rather than just being like love.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's all an interpretive process with emojis at the
hmm
end of the day.
Absolutely.
I do, what platform was it that you could create your own emojis for a while? I don't know if they still have that, where you could be like, give me the suspicious face emoji plus the crying eyes emoji and like smash them together and you could create like a new one.
Oh, I have that. I've got an Android phone, and every
Mm.
time I start typing multiple emojis in a row, it recommends that I combine like two of them
Oh,
together.
that's so funny. Yeah, I bought the Google phone a while ago and it actually animates the emojis when you send them in text.
Oh yeah, mine get animated as well.
Yeah, yeah. So that was a pleasant surprise, but emojis, they're fun stuff.
Emojis.
Please join us as we embark on this exciting adventure in story analysis and self-reflection in order to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. As always, we love hearing your own insights and stories as well, so please comment, like, subscribe below, and ready? All right, let's dive in. As we open this podcast episode, Vox Machina is doing something. My notes will tell me what they are doing. On the way to the Frost Weald, in an effort to find the Sphinx's mate, who will hopefully tell them more about the vestiges of divergence, they have continued on their trek with a newly found Tyriok, who is a map maker that had been petrified by a basilisk. Although a very earnest guide for them, he is noisy. So Vex recasts Pass Without a Trace to incorporate him, and then they start stealthing through the forest. They are aiming for the orc camp they heard of that was harassing some of the refugees from Western. And Vax, in the process of their trek, gives Tyriok the keen dagger for protection, but Vex persuades Tyriok it's too dangerous for him, but Vax pretends to swap it out for an ordinary dagger so that he's still somewhat protected. They do eventually spot two orcs, and they stealthily follow them back to their camp where the orcs are torturing prisoners. Great stuff. And having a grand old time doing it. While Scanlan casts Magnificent Mansion as a potential refuge for the prisoners, the rest of the party prepares for battle. There's a lot of argument as to what their plan of attack is, and they try a variety of things. Keyleth conjures woodland beings to summon two dryads to join the fight, but those dryads immediately fall into a previously invisible pit, screaming. So, seeing that the whole stealth approach is not going to work, Scanlan rolls into camp in a resilient sphere, singing to get the orcs' attention, and the party uses that as a distraction to attack. The highlights of this fight involve Keela throwing some of the orcs into the pit as well, and Percy stabbing one of them in the face with a javelin as they attempt to climb out of it. While the fight is going on, Scanlan also dimension doors into one of the tents, finding two brutalized human prisoners who he unties and sends on their way towards the mansion door. Grog also rolls a natural 20 and kills off two orcs in one turn. And after a short but intense fight, all but one grappled orc is dead. Grog steps forward to question the orc, but the orc knows very little and will not say if he knows where the Sphinx is. So Grog brutally kills him, and Craven Edge absorbs some of his strength, bringing Grog's strength to 24 since he has refused to take either a short rest or a long rest at this time. They discover that the tortured prisoner that they saw earlier is actually Cyrus, who is the brother of Cornelius, who is the Western refugee camp's leader. Cyrus is unconscious but alive, and Pike heals him. The party releases the other prisoners who head into the mansion, and they all loot the slain orc chief and the camp. Vax starts burying the dead as well. Vex goes on her broom, and Scanlan turns into a polymorphed crow to scout the mountain, Storm Peak. And they do find an intentionally carved triangular entrance at the very base of the mountain. And Scanlan flies in, but is defeated by the dark. He can't see anything, and so he drops his crow form. His gnome dark vision does see stairs leading downward and a blue shimmer coming from the tunnel beyond. So he polymorphs into an owl, rejoins the party, and they all regroup in the mansion. Grog stays awake that night, still not taking a long rest, and taking a second level of exhaustion in addition to the first one that he already had from the frenzied rage in battle. So we will see where this goes for Sir Grog.
Yes.
That's the break. It was short but sweet, but I didn't want to go through all of the details of the fight.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What do we think of this first half?
I don't know. The thing that really struck with me is just how, at this point in the campaign, like, orcs are still very much depicted as, like,
Yeah,
blanket evil enemies. And that was just a little jarring given how that's obviously been a shift that has taken place in more current Critical Role.
yeah,
Like, I remember that there was a point when Matt said, like, oh, like, these orcs, they're used to having their friends die, as if they, like, wouldn't feel emotions over the
wow.
deaths of the other orcs.
I
And
missed
it's
that.
just like, it was just jarring because I feel like there's been so much movement in terms of the D&D community in terms of like accepting that like there being like evil races
Yeah,
is like
yeah. Yeah.
rooted in racism and all that sort of stuff. And obviously this is older, but it still was not what wasn't I did not enjoy the fight because of
Yeah.
that. And just like with the way that they like brutally murdered all of them, didn't treat them like people, and Matt didn't describe them like people. They were just like
Yeah.
fodder to be torturing people and then to be killed.
Yeah.
And that was a little uncomfortable. Not just a little uncomfortable. I'm downplaying it, but yeah.
I mean, I was thinking about the same exact thing as I've been thinking about this episode because obviously we have like things like Tusk Love these days, and the newest campaign, Campaign 4, is heavily orc based
Oh
as
yeah.
in terms of like the world building, but also because of the character choices and all of that stuff. And so you're right, they've had a lot of conversations over the years of these stereotypically bad races that
Hmm.
have been traditionally used in that way. Um,
Yeah, it's very much like when we were at the start of talking
in
about
the
campaign
Underdark.
one, all the in the Underdark, the
Yeah,
Duragar and all of that.
yeah, yeah. And I think they've grappled with this idea of don't judge a book by its cover concept some in this campaign so far. Like we get a lot of that with the whole killing an old lady scene with
Hmm.
Lilith and everything around the Briarwood fight. Um, and the lesson hasn't entirely been yet learned at this point in the
No,
campaign.
we know they get it eventually
Yeah.
because yeah, campaign 2, campaign 3, campaign 4, all a lot better about that. But it's still yeah.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate. And like, I do appreciate that Matt did provide evidence for their bad behavior. Like they are literally torturing people. It's not
Hmm.
just like blindly killing people without knowing their sense of innocence or lack thereof.
Hmm.
However, orcs are also considered an easy choice for the role of torturer because
Yeah.
those racial assumptions.
And I mean, it goes all the way back to Lord of the Rings. I've
Yeah.
recently been watching the extended editions of the Lord of the Rings movies for the first time. And
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's the basis of orcs, and orcs are evil there, and it's just
I mean, it's been a
yeah.
trend in all forms of art and cultural and literature for a very long time. I actually wrote a paper in college one time about the Phantom of the Opera
Mm.
and how much he was changed into grotesque forms of himself to emphasize his villainy over time. Like
Yeah.
the original source matter of Phantom of the Opera, which I believe is a book originally, shows him as a normal human being. He has no deformities, nothing visually different about him then. But like then the musical happens and he starts having deformities and then this
Hmm.
other thing happens and then he has even more and then like it just as it goes on and so on and so forth and it's just fascinating.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate trend just in fiction in general that appearance is still often used uh to like paint morality.
Yeah.
Like there's a very clear image of what an evil character often looks like, and oftentimes it's rooted in racial stereotypes or ableist stereotypes or all sorts of other discriminatory stereotypes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fat phobic, that's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that I'm actually thinking about it, I think it was the other way around, where the original source material for Phantom of the Opera was the very heightened grotesque, but over
Mm.
years it was lessened. I think it was the other way around. But the point
I've
still
never
stands.
seen Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, because if I'm thinking correctly, like the 2005 movie has him being like a heartthrob. Like
Okay.
he is like the aesthetic ideal in that
Hmm.
movie. And so I think it's the other way around, where over time he's gotten less monstrous per se.
Hmm.
Um, but the point still stands in the sense of it's been part of our artistic and visual culture for a while to depict villainy in terms of visual cues.
Yes, absolutely.
I was even thinking about like Disney villains.
Oh yeah, Disney villains are notorious for that.
Yeah, like would we hate Ursula as much if she wasn't like a sea creature? You know, like
Yeah.
mermaids are propped up as like the ideal in that movie,
Uh-huh.
and then we have Ursula, the octopus goddess
Yeah,
monster thing.
exactly.
And there's also that whole like skinny and fat thing that's going on
Oh
in
yeah.
Little
That's a
Mermaid.
major thing. Like fatness is used to often depict like greed and like other negative things rather than just a body type that people have. Like it is so rare
Yeah.
to find a fat character in anything at all that doesn't fit any like negative stereotypes about them, like eating a lot or like as a symbol for greed or being lazy. And
I
that's
think it
something
all
I notice a lot as somebody who is fat.
mm.
And yeah.
I was even thinking about it the other day with Friends, the TV show, and the
Yeah.
Monica Geller used to be fat in the show,
Uh-huh.
and they always make all of these fat jokes, and I think it's also attributed to like the her neuroticism that she shows in the
Mm-hmm.
show as well. Um, and we do see times in which the Critical Role cast doesn't necessarily catch their culturally ingrained assumptions
Mm-hmm.
early on in this campaign. Like we see it with the Underdark with the Durgar, we see it here
Mm-hmm.
with the Orcs. There's also some minorly sexist statements that come from certain players throughout the early campaign as well. Um, so they're not perfect people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've also been part of that group of public figures who have taken the criticism and changed.
Absolutely. I mean, now we have orcs as like major player characters and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And yeah, the atmosphere is definitely a lot better. It's not perfect. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's ever been like a fat player character in, at least not in the main campaigns in
Mm,
Critical Role.
yeah. I mean, maybe a guest character,
I
but
don't have any that are coming to my mind.
I'm just thinking of oh, what's his name? Patrick Rothfuss. I can't remember what his character looks like, but um
Which character did he play again?
I'd have to think on that one.
But even then, even if there is one, the fact that it's so hard to think of
Yeah,
is
that makes the point in itself.
exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we see that a lot in fantasy as well because of the whole like the physical ability bias too.
Oh yeah, and I'm guilty of it just like without even thinking, making a lot of my own PCs that I play skinny, even though I myself am fat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very culturally ingrained. I think that's the next growth curve that we're going through in terms of
Mm-hmm.
cultural representation for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, I also want to talk about Grog here
Yes, we should talk about Grog.
because he is not in a good place right now.
Nope, he is not sleeping. That sword has such a hold over him. It is definitely showing the consequences. And I've talked about before about how much I love that Travis isn't afraid to like shy away from those consequences and bad decisions for character reasons.
Yeah.
And so I'm just drinking this all in. But yeah, concern for Grog's at an all-time high.
What do you think changed between that moment outside of Western when he does start talking to Scanlan about his questions. I wouldn't even call them concerns at this point. They're just questions
Hmm.
to him actively deciding to push the edge of Craven Edge.
And I mean, I don't entirely have the whole context because in between recording, I did not watch the episode in between that I was
Mm.
not doing an episode for. So I don't have the full context. So you can correct me if my guess seems off. But what I would wonder is if it has something to do with being prepared to face his herd again and wanting to be strong.
Mm. Interesting. I think that's a really good theory.
Wanting to be strong, but also having that fear take over and making him more susceptible.
Yeah, because we both know how this ends.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
Right now, I mean, it's kind of there's a really strong parallel here for addiction, I think,
Oh
in
yeah.
terms of certain substances may make you feel like you're invincible, right?
Hmm.
And certain people do turn to those substances for that effect, but in the reality, it's actually making you more vulnerable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I work at a youth shelter. I see that all the time.
Yeah. So he's kind of on a power binge right now. Um, it's not healthy. I don't know if anyone around him is really noticing,
No, I
which
think
I
there's
think
too
is
much
super
else
sad.
going on. But yeah, it definitely seems like the ball is being dropped there in terms
Yeah,
of his friends picking up on it.
yeah. I it's pretty sad, honestly. Because even though he has himself spoken to Scanlon about this, and Scanlon himself has also spoken to Pike about this, P Laura or Ashley isn't physically present in this episode.
Hmm.
They're playing Pike as if she's there, but Ashley is missing. And I think this is one of
Yeah,
the times where it is detrimental to both the narrative and character development for Ashley to be gone in this setting.
absolutely.
Because I
Yeah.
feel like she might be the only one who would notice in this scenario.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That's definitely something that was fixed in the animated series, but is just by nature of the way that like actual play works,
Yeah,
is just a plot hole there.
yeah, yeah. It is a plot hole, and I feel bad for Grog.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to give him a hug.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like we're working up to what Percy's moment was with Scanlan throwing the gun into the acid pit,
Yes, absolutely.
right? I feel like we needed the equivalent of that for Grog to happen right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the party was more inclined to notice Percy's degradation of sanity over Grog's downfall?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a piece of it there, like in the way that Grog may be kind of like obviously they value Grog as a friend and like, but he is like less intelligent in like his intelligence stat is really low and he there's just a lot of the stuff that he already does doesn't make a whole lot of sense to the party. They're just like, oh, that's just Grog. And
Hmm.
so I think that might make it harder for them to see the red flags. And obviously, this is like an intentional character choice on people's part to not acknowledge it because it's very openly being said at the table, the consequences that are happening and what's been happening. But I definitely think it might be like a little bit of like unexamined stigma on the other characters' parts.
I was just thinking that, and I'm wondering if their blindness to Scanlan is also under that category as well.
Uh-huh.
Because, you know, Pike isn't around much, so we can't really put her in that category just yet.
No.
But Scanlan and Grog are the least human or elf-like
Yeah.
in the group, right?
And they're also kind of like the goofiest in terms of personality. It's very easy to brush them off as like, oh, there's nothing serious going on underneath all that.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Because there's also some serious like audience stigma that I think that's is still going on in the Critical Role fandom as well.
Hmm.
I know we're not talking about Campaign 4 right now, but we're seeing it a bit with Campaign 4.
Yes.
Um, and I think for Campaign 1, it can also kind of be applied to the whole Tiberius situation as well.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Hmm. We are imperfect beings living in an imperfect world, and we all have biases that we need to examine.
Exactly. That's how all of this works. It's impossible to be bias free, but it is good to be aware of your biases, and if you have negative biases, to work on
Hmm.
eliminating those and examining those and figuring out where those come from. And I'm saying that as somebody who is continuously doing this and working on this and
Hmm.
trying to see where my blind spots are. And
Hmm.
like I'm not a perfect person. I'm doing this too.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I look up my privilege all the time. And I think Grog is also experiencing a lot of othering right now as well
Hmm.
because he's being actively compared to the herd that's taking over Western.
Absolutely.
Like we have those moments where, he goes into the refugee camp and people are immediately afraid of him. Or he goes to
Hmm.
speak to the farmers outside of the city and they immediately distrust him. Um, and so I'm wondering if this reaction to the sword right now is also a reaction to that othering that's happening.
It absolutely could be. It's also interesting that this othering is happening with Grog, and then like there's this whole battle with the orcs. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
something that Travis actively thought about a lot doing it because orcs very much are just like a staple bad guy, but there could be the room for some really interesting implications of Grog because Grog did a lot of the damage and
Yeah.
he killed that one right at the end when they weren't
Yeah.
getting the
I mean,
questioning that they were getting. Like, is he trying? Like on a meta sense in the
yes.
story of what we're given,
Yes.
not necessarily what is being intended as being played
Yes.
by, but on in like that sense, is Grog trying to separate himself
Yes.
from this vision? Because Goliaths are viewed very similarly to orcs in
Mm-hmm.
this sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't know if it's intentional, but it does pose some interesting questions of why, when he has this stigma going on, is he going and doing this to other races who also
Mm-hmm.
have the
Mm-hmm.
same sort of stigma? And
Yeah.
it just, I think that that can happen a lot in spaces if there's like a minority who is in a group of a bunch of people who are not in the minority. And this isn't for like everybody in the situation, but it is something that people do where sometimes they'll try to separate themselves from people who are more like them and act more like the oppressive group and
Yeah.
just like
We see it all the time in the queer community.
uh-huh,
All the
absolutely.
time. Infighting is beneficial for the oppressive class,
Exactly.
right? And I think a lot of marginalized identity people can get caught in the, well, at least I'm better than them
Exactly.
mentality. Um, because it's just an attempt for belonging.
Mm-hmm.
It's an attempt for validation. It's an attempt for feelings of being feeling good about oneself,
Exactly.
which I think are
It's
all understandable human impulses, right?
Oh yeah, it's hard to be constantly discriminated against and constantly being othered, and I think it's normal to want to not be that. And
Hmm.
it's easy to fall in if you're not aware of it and not keeping track of like what you're doing and not examining not only your biases but the biases of your environment and the people around you.
Yes.
It's easy to fall in that just because you're so desperate for belonging and acceptance and like
I think validation of
not
your
being othered.
choices
Yeah.
also counts there too.
Hmm.
And like, let's be clear, we're not blaming Travis for this, right?
No.
Um, I think it is definitely nurture over nature here that we're talking about.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it literally is just that Matt put in like a staple bad guy that they could fight to give them a
yeah,
combat. But I do think that if we are like examining this and looking at the narrative sense and like looking at this is the story that has been presented to us, regardless of intentions, like what
yes,
would be going on for Grog here to
yes,
make this move when he is being is can be othered in that same way.
yeah, yeah, because he does kill off at least three orcs in this fight
Hmm.
by himself.
Yeah.
And the last one, like you said, is pretty brutal.
Yes.
My notes literally say brutally kills him.
Yes.
Um, so I think there's a lot at play when it comes to Grog's motivations here and the mental state that Grog is in. Even though it feels like an oxymoron to say Grog's mental state,
Hmm.
but I think it's still very important to consider in this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Poor Grog.
Poor Grog.
And we can all make better choices because like we've discussed before, hurt people hurt people.
Exactly. We live in a broken world and everybody is just trying to survive and do their best. And sometimes that comes at the expense of hurting others.
Hmm. Hmm. The mechanics are also interesting in this first half. We talked a
Yes.
little bit about game mechanics in the last episode because they fumbled around a lot in the Basilisk's fight. And here they're seen fumbling around a lot more.
Hmm.
There is a lot of conversation that I didn't cover in the summary when it comes to them talking about how to exactly attack the orc camp. And Keyleth is also, Marisha is also seen struggling heavily with being able to understand these conjure woodland beings, spells. And
Hmm.
Matt is also not helping with the situation again because
Hmm.
um, he's not prepared to answer the questions that they have about the mechanics. And so I think it also contributes to this theme of imperfect beings living in an imperfect world that we're talking about here.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I think this is one of the first uses that we see of Magnificent Mansion being used as a tool in combat.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting use and a very like good one. Like
Hmm.
it helped a lot.
Yeah, because like it's still a relatively new spell to Scanlan at this point in
Hmm.
time. And he's just now learning what all it can do. And so I think this is just a really important milestone for that use of this spell in this campaign
Hmm.
in general and in future campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's an interesting first half, even if it's a short first.
Exactly. And it's not even that short. I just think a lot of the things that happened were so drawn out that not a lot
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, it's just a lot of stabbing and shooting.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, we can analyze, but we don't really want to.
Hmm. Yeah. Combat is definitely like role play moments hold a lot more of my focus in D&D than
Yeah.
combat. Combat is interesting and through doing this podcast and especially when I'm taking notes, I'm learning how to pay better attention to combat and
Hmm.
recognize things in combat, but there is often a part of my brain that like half tunes out combat when I'm watching actual play.
Yeah. And this is the 49th episode. So they are coming up on a year, if not have already met a year of streaming at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also puts into context all of these things that we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
Like a year can feel so long and so short at the same time.
Absolutely.
And it's literally 1/10 of the Critical Role timeline at this point in time.
Yes.
So
We really still are in early days. There's
right.
been a lot of growth since the first stream already, but we are still in early days.
Yeah, yeah. I think the subscriber count that they were aiming for during this episode was like 16,700, something
Mm-hmm.
like
Something like
that.
that.
And if you go back and actually look at like the amount of just YouTube video views that they have alone on these episodes, it's like in the upper millions.
Yeah.
Like 7 million, 8 million, 11 million sometimes, depending on what episode it is, you know. Um, and so I think that's also an important context to recognize as we are discussing all of this stuff because they are still definitely, I would argue, heavily in the infancy stages of Critical Role
Absolutely.
and character development, both for the in-game characters and the players' personal
Mm-hmm.
internal characters. Their
Absolutely.
character growth as people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would include Matt in that statement, even though he's not a player, but, whatever.
Yeah. Well, he is a player. Like not like he's not, he's playing a lot of characters, he's building the world, he's playing the game. Like I would still like he's not a player in the same way that the others are, but
Yeah.
he is still an integral piece of this game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a great example for us to be okay with imperfection,
Hmm.
accepting of imperfection,
Yeah.
not letting imperfection distract us or even upset us.
Hmm.
Because I don't think getting upset at imperfection is ever productive, in my opinion.
Hmm. It's good to recognize where growth needs to happen, but you can't get caught up. Like if you get too caught up in the shame of it all, you're not gonna grow because you're just gonna spend time feeling bad about it.
Yeah. Well, any personal experiences coming to mind?
Well, I feel like I've talked a lot about personal experiences in this already in terms of, uh, yeah, just my own outlook on examining my biases and just the
Mhm.
awareness in general,
Mm.
about my relation to like fat characters and stuff like that, as and in terms of the fat phobia and all of that.
Mhm.
I'm struggling to think of anything more I can add to what I've already said throughout this episode.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can definitely see the stuff that happens in the queer community for sure when we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
infighting and stuff like that, because, there's always the like bi erasure or pan erasure that happens in
Mm-hmm.
the queer community. I can definitely relate to that. Um, and I think for me, at the end of the day, it's also just the whole imperfection conversation of
Yeah,
being willing to try and fail. Like fail forward is a term that
exactly.
people use a lot. I actually just made a video about it today, where I tried a new book promotion platform last year and uploaded what I thought was the correct files of my book to the platform to be distributed to readers. And the files didn't end up reading well on certain e-reader applications.
Mm.
And so I got a few different comments about how I didn't do my formatting correctly in the book. Um, and that's not directly my fault. the files were formatted correctly. It's how the files were
Mm-hmm.
distributed by the platform.
Yeah.
But again, it's a learning opportunity, and it's an opportunity to be like, okay, well, I accept that I had part of this mistake that went on, and I choose to fail forward.
Yeah.
I could get mad about it being not successful enough for the endeavor that I thought was going to happen with this platform. I could be mad about the bad reviews that I now have on my public review sites for my
Mm-hmm.
books due to that mishap. I could spend all of my time arguing with those reviewers in the comments on those review sites, and I'm choosing not to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think it's just a great example and a great reminder. And I think this episode is also a great reminder of don't be afraid to try things and fail in the
Exactly.
process. You don't have to show up to everything perfectly.
You're not gonna learn if you don't try things.
Yeah.
And making mistakes is how we get better.
Yeah.
Making mistakes sucks, especially because culturally, making mistakes is always painted as this terrible thing that has severe consequences. And yeah, sometimes there's consequences to making mistakes, but like that perfectionism isn't healthy.
Yeah.
And I know that's something I need to work on, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's also the other half of that equation is recognizing where we have grown.
Hmm.
I was talking about this the other day with a friend of mine where I think a lot of people are stuck in this mindset of it still being 2016.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are like, we haven't done anything of substance the last 10 years. You know what I mean? And like, it's just what it was before. And I'm like, do you realize how much has happened in those 10 years? Like, we had a
Hmm.
fucking pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, so much has changed. Like, I was actually thinking about that, about the strange evolution of the public acceptance of mask wearing.
Yeah.
Like at first, if you wore a face mask in public, it would be a weird thing. That's where we started,
Hmm.
right? Then the pandemic happened and it happened to be the morally good thing to wear a mask in public.
Hmm.
And then the pandemic kind of petered out, and then bad guys started wearing masks and harassing people on the street. So now it's also super bad to wear masks now, sometimes
Hmm.
in certain situations. Um, and it's just so strange that that evolution just towards that one article of clothing can
Yeah.
change so much in a 10-year period.
Hmm.
And that's just talking about one single article of clothing. Like that's not even
Exactly.
considering all of the other things that have changed over that time frame.
Yeah.
And so I think it's also important when we're talking about growth in general to look ahead and behind at the same time.
Absolutely.
Because we could be doing a podcast right now about how Critical Role is racist.
We could.
But we have evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, they've grown, they've changed. They're still not perfect, but
Yeah.
there's vast improvements from
Yeah.
the days when orcs were just cut and paste
Yeah.
villains.
We could rage bait the hell out of this.
Yeah.
We could be like, Critical Role is racist. Here's our receipts. Da 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 da. We could get all kinds of people arguing in our comment sections. We would get all kinds of views on this podcast because of that. Um, and yet, I think you share the sentiment of mine, is that we think it's more productive to be like, yes, that happened, and it can actually coexist equally with present day evidence as
Absolutely.
well.
We can talk about how the depiction of orcs in this episode was bad, but also recognize that this is an element of Critical Role's past and that there's evidence in the future towards growth and change, and that things are
Mhm.
vastly different with Critical Role now.
Hmm. And I think that's the most important part of the sacred role reading practice that we're applying here, is that it does accept and explore and elevate nuance.
Hmm.
Where it's not
Absolutely.
black and white thinking here. It's not binary thinking, dichotomy thinking, where we're like, they're a racist and they will always be racist.
Hmm.
No, it exists on a continuing spectrum of time.
Exactly. And they're going to continue to grow and improve and all these things. Where they are now isn't perfect, but it's we've seen the growth and we know that they'll continue to grow.
And I think that's an important lesson for all of us.
Hmm.
So,
And
what are we?
really, if you look at things, there's never going to be a perfect thing.
Oh, I know. There's never going to be an end either. End is death.
Exactly.
Like, you're never ever going to get to a place to be like, I changed. I'm done changing forever.
Exactly.
I'm done learning. I'm done growing. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
I've achieved the thing. Um, which I think we've also talked about many times before, is just a counterproductive way to look at things.
Exactly.
Well, what are you being called to do?
Well, one of the things that stood out to me in general is just that I think I should make more of my D&D characters fat and start to be the change that I
Yes.
want to see in the world and give myself that representation
Hell
so
yeah.
that I can, like, I in general am fine and happy with my body, but I still have a lot of, because of the way that it's culturally
Yeah.
depicted, still
Valid.
have a lot of insecurities. Um, I can't force other people to change and include more fat characters, but I can start to make and play characters that I can see myself in it, like in that regard.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I love that. Yeah. I actually would love to see more fat characters out there in the world. I think we're starting to include them more,
Mhm. I
but
know in the current Dimension 20 side quest adventure, Jacob Wysocki is playing a fat character,
great.
and that makes me very happy to see.
Excellent. I love that. Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. What do I want to do? Um, I don't know, give myself grace, I guess, and not let my perfectionist streak take over so much. Or at least don't shame myself when it does.
Yeah.
Um, have more conversations like these too, I think is
Hmm.
important, which I think is also part of your conversation of making more fat characters is um just being more open about having these discussions about bias. I
Hmm.
think turns the hostility down sometimes, or
Yeah.
turns the tension down. I'm not, I'm looking for the right word there, but if you approach these topics with empathy, curiosity, compassion instead of accusatory
Hmm.
and rage baiting,
Yeah.
I think we would have a lot more productive conversations, and I think a lot more progress would be made as a result.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
I was talking to a friend the other day who is engaged in a political debate with a connection of hers, like an ongoing political, like I'm talking about like years long
Wow.
political and like I was reading through the text thread because she was like, read what she said, read what she said. And I was like, why are you continuing to do this to yourself?
Hmm.
Um, And it's just because they both are so passionate and um accusatory. I'm just gonna say it towards each other. They just double down, and so there's never actual any middle ground met between the two of
Hmm.
them. And it's just continuing the cycle of I was like, you are just raising your cortisol for no reason. Like Do you really want to do that to your health? Like, are you really willing to give yourself a heart attack just so that you can argue with someone over text?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm not saying that the conversation shouldn't be had.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that the conversation could be had in a more productive way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a better approach for all of these conversations about like so and so is racist or so and so is fat phobic or so and so is homophobic or queer baiting is a big
Mm-hmm.
thing these days.
Yeah.
Um, so I think for me, I want to just like have these conversations more often in safe environments, in
Yeah.
calm environments instead of inflammatory. I think that was the word that I was looking for earlier.
Yeah.
Of just bringing down the inflammation, both literally and figurative.
Yeah.
Let's just take some turmeric shots. We can chill. We can discuss this stuff. It's all right. Um, because people aren't going to change unless they feel safe, right?
Exactly.
So how can I create safe environments to have these important conversations, I think is a question that I'm walking away with.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Which, is I think an unintentional byproduct or aim of this podcast in general
Yeah,
is that we are just looking deeply at things, and sometimes they're controversial topics.
absolutely.
Sometimes they're sticky,
Hmm.
but that's human, right?
That's human.
So, anything else you want to add to this sticky conversation? We have a
I
safe
can't think of
space.
anything.
um, this is powerful stuff that we're talking about per usual. We joke that these are therapy sessions. We don't mean that literally, but we mean
Hmm.
that more as like this is a therapeutic safe space to
Yeah.
have those conversations.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's important. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah, I find it important too.
Cool. Glad we agree on that.
Yeah.
Audience, we definitely encourage you to join us in this safe, non-inflammation space. If you want some turmeric shots, there's some great ones at Costco. Share your thoughts, your feelings, your insights, your stories with us as well. We'd love to know how Critical Role episodes have impacted you in your own lives. You know, this conversation is ongoing. It's been ongoing for years in terms of Critical Role, D&D, fantasy in general. It's
Fiction in general.
fiction in general. It's a huge topic. Um, so I'm sure you have thoughts out there.
Yeah.
Special thanks to Petal for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Next time we'll be discussing Campaign 1, Episode 49, Part 2, and joining me again will be Petal. I'm excited for that. As always, I'm looking for more co-hosts and guests, so if you want to nerd out with me, please do let me know. I'm always happy to nerd out with fellow nerds. In the meantime, please comment, like, subscribe below, follow us on Tumblr at Sacred Reading CR for all the juicy updates. I promise I will update it at some point in time. Maybe next. We'll see.
We'll see.
Until next time, may all your, well, bleh, may all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free. And be the chaotic good you wish to see in the world. Take care, guys.
Bye.